Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast with your hosts, Reese Downing and Jacob Workman.
What's going on, guys? It is TNT Tuesday Night Touchdown Podcast, combo edition here, NCAA and NFL. We're going to cover some way too early 2025 previews. Before we hop into things, we are going to cover some NFL news. With me, as always, is the fine citizen, Mr. Jacob Workman. Jake, how's it going, brother? Last episode of the season.
Yeah, it really sucks. There's no more football to watch, so
unless we start a USFL podcast, I don't know if we're going to get any listeners. But.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna tune in. I actually watched a little bit of it last year. It's not horrendous, but yeah, it'll be a long. What do we got here? 6 months, I guess. So
yeah, we'll have a couple episodes in between. Then we were talking about just before the show the possibility of maybe doing a free agency recap because it gets a little busy there just before the draft, and then obviously for those of you who joined us for the draft last year, we were live for the entire first round. That was a marathon, but it was fun. Had some good content on there. Hopefully we can get the booze Carter back on stage. Yeah, so let's kick things off here. We did not have much of a Super Bowl this year. Philadelphia won the game 40-22, went into halftime up 23-zip. They had the score at 34-0 before the Chiefs were able to put anything into the end zone. Two late fourth quarter scores from KC that made the game really look closer than what it was. It was not nearly as close as the 40-22 final score. Jalen Hurts was named the Super Bowl MVP, arguably one of the best games of his NFL career. Jake, what were your thoughts on the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I was really hoping Josh Sweat was going to get MVP for a minute there. It actually looked like he might, but obviously Hurts kind of overtook it a little bit. But I was rooting for my Noel. It was the exact blueprint that Tampa used against the Chiefs. It was 4 linemen with pressure and Hughes the other 7 in the back, and it worked. Chiefs had no one open. The front four was absolutely dominating. We kind of mentioned before, like every time they were drafting these guys, it was like, this just isn't fair that these guys keep falling to them, and they benefit from it. Obviously, when you're killing people, you fall in the draft a little bit, but that it fell to their favor. They took advantage of guys falling that arguably should they have fallen or not. I mean, that's one thing, but clearly they had some legal issues. So they took advantage of it. They got them, and those guys dominated the game. So it was simple as that. And I mean, Philly's offense, I mean, it wasn't record breaking. They literally did what I said they were going to do. The Chiefs completely shut down Saquon Barkley, but they let Jalen beat them, which is what I said they couldn't do. So It was a pretty ugly game, to be honest. It wasn't. It sucks when that's how the year ends, but I mean, congrats to Philly. And I know you don't like him. I do like Nick Sirianni. I don't understand why Phillies fans gave him shit during the year when they had like one loss. Like they're like 11-1 and their fans want him fired. I don't understand that. But he shut him up. So I like it. They got the win. And unfortunately, that's how the season ended.
Yeah, it's weird that happened with both champions this year because Ohio State fans wanted Day's ass cans, and then he turned around to win a national title. Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously not an Eagles fan, so I didn't love watching the game. Just broadly, even if they did end up winning, I was hoping for a more competitive football game. But yeah, I was a little surprised on the defensive side of the ball, especially like we talked about it. You just said it. Like we talked about how they were going to hone in on Barkley and make Jalen Hurts beat them. But I expected some adjustments from Spags. Like I don't know exactly what those adjustments would have been. I know if they would have tried not keying so much on Barkley, they would have just started handing the ball off to Saquon, and then the same result could have happened. But we just didn't see a lot in terms of adjustments. And like you said, I mean, credit to Philly. Like Philly has built this team in a lot of ways through the draft. And, I think you and I both went crazy when they got Jalen Carter where they did. We're just like, it's ridiculous that they grabbed a lot of these guys where they were. Tremendous drafting by Roseman and the guys in Philly. So congratulations to Philadelphia Eagles fans. We'll see if they're able to repeat because it looks like a majority of this team is going to be back next year. So I think the big adjustment for them is going to be change in play callers. And that's the next thing I want to talk about here is shortly after winning the Super Bowl as the Eagles offensive coordinator, we predicted it. Pretty much everybody did at this point because there's not many guys left, but Kellen Moore was announced as the new head coach for the New Orleans Saints. Jake, how do you think Kellen's gonna transition from being just a play caller to being a team leader?
Before I answer that, I do want to get into one more thing I kind of forgot. The real Super Bowl MVP for anyone that uses Twitter religiously was Jameis Winston. His content from New Orleans throughout the week. That was some of the
still seeing it.
Yes, it was some of the best stuff of all time. He's absolutely hilarious.
So not only am I so not only am I still seeing it, but I'm seeing this content from Jameis landing on accounts and platforms that you normally wouldn't see stuff from Jameis. Like, yes, Jameis, buddy, whenever you decide to hang up those cleats, and I hope it's not anytime soon, man, please, for the love of God, somebody put this man on TV.
Yes.
He's so joyful in everything that he does. I know we're big homers on Jameis Winston, but if you guys, I don't know how you can hate that man. Even as a Gator fan, like, you got to respect what this dude does. Like, he's a fun dude.
I wish he did the Theo Vaughn podcast. I think it was before this season started, and it was incredible. I wish he would. I mean, I can only imagine the things that would come out of his mouth, but I wish he would come out with his own podcast. I think it would be incredible.
Well, he was hanging out with Bert. I can never say the guy's name.
Kreischer.
Right. Kreischer. Yeah, Bert Kreischer. He was hanging out with Bert Kreischer during the game. And I know that they showed that clip where when he was talking to
AJ Brown,
he was like, do the dance. And then he did the dance, and James looked like a 5-year-old kid excited up there. It's just,
I know Bert even said to him when he was like celebrating that, Bert was like, I love that you just love life. That's what he said to him.
He does, man. He does. It's hard not to smile when you see a clip of Jameis Winston. So
his inspirational speeches to his things he was performing, it was just all over the place of New Orleans. Was incredible.
Definitely highlight of the Super Bowl, in my opinion.
Yes. And to continue on with New Orleans, Kellen Moore, we said, obviously everyone, it was pretty straightforward. We knew. I know Sirianni on the state podium getting the trophy said, let's run that shit back, Kellen. But that only lasted for a day, and then Kellen was signed. So it was a done deal. It'll be interesting to see what he does, because New Orleans has some questions. I don't like Carr at quarterback. I guess Olave is all right. They've got some issues there. So I'm not too sold on New Orleans as a team, as we talked about at the beginning of the season, and some guy decided to comment, and look what happened. Your coach got fired and your team sucked. So I don't know. I don't have a lot of faith for that offense. I think they will, and they have no money either. They're always a free agent issue because they never have cap space. So I'm not too sure what they're going to do. If I was Kellen, I mean, I know he probably wanted a head coaching job, but I think with the way Philly was built, I might have gave it one more year before I left, kind of like Ben Johnson did. But
yeah.
But I mean, I do like Kellen Moore, so I'm excited to see what he does there.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see what the offense looks like. He's going to have to find somebody that's a strong defensive mind to come in and take over the DC position. But they do have some talent issues in New Orleans, so we'll see how that all shakes out as free agency and see what they do in the draft. Keeping things moving here, rumors were swirling that the Jets had made the decision to move on from Aaron Rodgers this offseason, but more information has started to come out over the past couple of days that there were apparently a couple key points that led to the divorce. Rodgers has been a regular on ESPN's Pat McAfee show, and he's been known to push the envelope when he's talking about a variety of things. His love of darkness retreats and ayahuasca, and him being immunized, quote unquote, from COVID. A lot of strong opinions on a number of different topics. A report from The Athletic came out that the new Jets front office and head coaching staff basically told Rodgers that if you're going to be on this team next year, you need to stay off the media. And that means no regular sessions at the Pat McAfee show. We want you to keep focused on football. And then in addition to that, they also told him that he needs to start showing up and participating in all the mandatory practices. And I think that partially stemmed from the fact that Rodgers had an unexcused absence in the mandatory minicamp this year for a trip to Egypt. And I know that the Jets spun it as, well, if it's important for Aaron, it's important for us. I think that was kind of the quote that came out of Saleh at the time. Obviously the new regime, starting with Aaron Glenn, they're not interested in putting up with the stuff that they were putting up with this year. Jake, what are your thoughts on all of this stuff? And, from a guy who's familiar with Aaron Glenn, is it really all that surprising that he's stepping in and trying to implement that level of discipline with the team?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I have mixed opinions on this because I don't like, especially in the New York media market, like, how do you tell a guy what you can and can't do? Like, especially the face of your franchise and one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history. Like, and I mean, I watch Pat McAfee show every single day. I kind of know Aaron's mentality just by seeing him on the show, and I can just see him saying "fuck off." Like, I can literally see when someone says that to him, I can literally see him going, like, kind of laughing like he does and saying, "Fuck that." Like,
yeah,
that's not going to fly
wouldn't have
with
been
him.
much of a conversation. He would just been like, "All right, see ya."
Yeah, that's not. And I don't know. I don't like that kind of shit from coaches either. Like, Belichick, okay, I'll say cool because that's just how he was. But they won. He's proven. Get it. And that's kind of where they fell apart in the end too, because it was just getting to be too much for them. But I don't know. I don't like that to be your introductory. It's kind of like when Dion went to Colorado and went into that room and basically told 90% of those guys they're going to be gone. Like,
yeah,
I don't like that shit. And then you come out and you win 4 games your first year. And what they win this year? 7, 8, something like that. They still haven't even had like a great year. So you come in and talk all that shit, but then you don't win. Like, I have a problem with that. And I've said many times, I like Aaron Glenn. I don't believe he's going to be successful. So to come in and already have that, and you're probably not going to be successful, I don't like it, to be honest. But I think the writing was on the wall that Aaron was already out anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that was the first point I was going to make, is that I do think the writing was on the wall that Aaron wasn't going to be there anyway. I don't agree with the whole stay off of the media while you're there. To your first point, they are in the biggest media market in the globe, really. Second part of that is that there's a lot of other players like Amon-Ra St. Brown and Micah Parsons. All these guys are doing podcasts and all these different things. Like, who are you to tell A-Rod what he can and can't do with his own time, so long as he's showing up to practice? And that's the one part of this that I do agree with, is if it's a mandatory minicamp, Rodgers needs to be there, because that team needs a level of leadership that they didn't see in 2025, 2024. So I'm with the whole, like, if it's mandatory, you need to be there. There's no excuse. Like, take the Egypt trip now when you're sitting on your ass in the off season. Don't do it when you know you have obligations, especially because he's getting paid a ton of money. But I disagree with the media side of the equation. I'm with you on that. I just don't see, like, I don't know if that's a situation where the folks that are still there from the Jets felt like he was more focused on doing that kind of thing than improving the team last year, and they feel like because that was part of it, they were trying to get it under control, or if it is Aaron Glenn just trying to set a standard. But yeah, I think we both didn't think that he was going to be coming back in a Jets uniform anyway, but surprising that those stipulations were put in place. I'm sure we'll probably hear about it. I can only imagine that Rodgers is going to comment on it. So
yeah. Well, and on Pat McAfee's show this week, he said he was out of the country, so he's not even there right now. So I don't know.
I was gonna say it's going to end up on the show that they told him to keep off of. So
yes,
it's kind of ironic that's
definitely
how it's going to play out. But all right,
yeah, and I'm wondering if he's even. I mean, I know he seriously contemplated retirement before. I don't think he's going to want to go out the way that season went, though. So I do think he'll probably will come back to play. But I think retirement has to be a real thought for him also.
Yeah.
I know I've seen some rumors of maybe the Raiders or the Steelers. I even saw one thing that said go to the Vikings and kind of continue that Favre trend. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where he ends up landing, but.
Minnesota would be an interesting place for him to land. If you think about the pieces that they have on that offense, I mean, he's familiar with Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
They have JJ and a couple other key pieces. TJ Hawkinson will be back for a full year of health.
Well, and you have to wonder if Devontae is going to go with Aaron again, because if Justin Jefferson and Devontae were there, that would be
Tay
solid.
is a free agent. So, like, can you imagine having Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, and Devontae Adams to throw the ball to? behind a decent offensive line and a running back that that stayed healthy throughout the season. Minnesota won 14 games this year, so I mean they're not a bad team.
I know. I'm not sure if Jones was on a 1-year deal though or not. Aaron Jones. There's a chance he might be a free agent. I'm not positive.
He might, but I mean, to that point, he's played with A-Rod for how many years? So like, I feel like that would be a shoe-in for them to be able to get him to resign. Yeah. So that's a sneaky play there. We'll be interested to see what happens because I don't think Sam Darnold's going to be back.
I don't either.
And to further that point, it's also bringing in a very veteran quarterback that, even though I think historically we've heard that he doesn't like mentoring, having JJ McCarthy sit on the bench for one more year, watching Aaron Rodgers play football is there's a lot of things to like there.
And Aaron's kind of said that that's all bullshit too. Jordan Love, he took Jordan Love under his wing. He invited him to everything from day one. He was always with him. He's basically said that the mentoring shit was bullshit and all the stuff that people, I mean, obviously he hates the media anyway, but he'll gladly come out and say when stuff is wrong. And I do think, and even Jordan Travis from Florida State was kind of under his wing this year as an injury, but he was there. And even Jordan Travis said a lot about learning from Aaron. So I don't really buy into that. The only thing I think for Minnesota is do you want to have JJ McCarthy sit another year? That's where I think the question might be.
Yeah, I guess you can see that. On the flip side of the equation, we saw what happened. I mean, Jordan Love's been kind of up and down, so maybe that's not the best approach. But I mean, realistically, JJ sat out hurt the entire year, so this is kind of his rookie season coming up, right? So like, I don't think it's out of the question to have JJ sit for one more year if you can get a guy like Aaron.
I don't either. The money that they could potentially save though by having that contract, I think is where things might come in though. But yeah,
for sure. That's fair. Well, speaking of Rodgers, he's also in the news for where he may land. And we just mentioned this briefly here, but rumors are that the Pittsburgh Steelers are considering a couple different options at quarterback that the names that are being thrown around are not Russ Wilson or Justin Fields. The two names that are being thrown around are Matthew Stafford, who is currently an LA Ram, and Aaron Rodgers. That would be very interesting. I don't think A-Rod's as much of a fit for that franchise as Matt would be. Stafford, they're going to have to get him receiver support though. I mean, like frankly, as a Matthew Stafford fan, as we both are, but you even more so, like I don't want to see Stafford go to the Steelers because I don't think that's the best fit for him from an offensive perspective. But what are your thoughts on between those two quarterbacks, which one would be best for Pittsburgh?
See, I actually think the opposite. I think Aaron would be a better fit than Stafford there. Stafford's never been an outdoor cold weather for a whole season quarterback. I mean, obviously the team, the way the team is built, Steelers are defense first, run the ball. They definitely will need to add a receiver at some point. But I think Aaron does actually fit the Steelers better a little bit, but I'm just not 100% positive on Stafford in Pittsburgh. That's such an interesting, just the thought of it. The thought of him being an outside quarterback. I mean, obviously he just had, I mean, hell, they should have maybe be a wrong term, but they could have beat Philly in a blizzard to go to the conference championship game. I mean, Stafford threw for almost 400 yards in that game. So, I mean, it's not like he can't play.
If that were a more balanced weather environment, that could have been a very different outcome.
Yeah. So I wish he would just stay in LA, finish it there. Obviously the rumors are all over the place that he might not be. It's time will tell. One of the big Steelers reporters just this week did say he thought there might be a chance Russell Wilson was back. So I guess we're looking at Wilson, Rodgers, Stafford, and I guess potentially even a draft pick. I know that they did want to bring in more of a veteran as opposed to draft. But I know we were talking before the show. We'll get to this in a little bit. One of the mock drafts does have a quarterback going to the Steelers, which we'll get to. But Sam Darnold has also, I've seen some stuff on him being potential Steelers quarterback also. So the Steelers have a lot of options. So at least it's a good thing for that.
Yeah, it's a quarterback heavy right now between some of the guys that are coming out of the draft and all the stuff that's going on in free agency. So it'll be fun to keep an eye on. Let's see here. The last thing that we wanted to touch base on here quickly as far as NFL before we get into a couple betting lines here on our way too early predictions is NFL honors that was announced last Thursday. We're gonna pause on this first one. We talked about it a little bit in the last couple shows. The Bills quarterback Josh Allen ended up winning the NFL MVP. You and I both thought that Lamar Jackson should be the one to make it. We had multiple other guys on the show that felt that way. What do you think ended up being the key differentiator?
Honestly, I don't know. I was pretty big on the Lamar should have been MVP train. I guess the voters, from everything I heard on TV from the guys that have votes, they basically said Lamar was, and this makes no sense to me, but apparently this is how the award is worded. But Lamar was the better player, but Josh was the most valuable. So however that makes sense, they try to make it make sense. So
okay. Yeah, that sounds like a bunch of
it was TV bullshit. But
interesting.
I mean, I don't think it's too far fetched to say either one of them honestly could have won it. I don't think it's as ridiculous as Travis Hunter winning the Heisman over Ashton Genty. So we'll leave it at that.
Yeah. All right. Before we move on here, we do have Brandon Hallam who's listening to the show. Thanks for tuning in, Brandon. Steelers will have a shot to sign lots of QBs or old receivers. And then it looks like we've got a second comment here. Can't throw over 3,800 yards and still win the MVP. Oh, we got Brandon's just dropping bombs.
Yeah, he's got all kinds of comments
Josh
going
Allen, here. Neither has ever thrown over 3,800 yards and won MVP. All right, fair. Well, just rounding out the awards here, the Minnesota Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell won the NFL head coach of the year.
It's ridiculous.
Ex-Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson won the NFL assistant coach of the year. Commanders quarterback Jaden Daniels won NFL offensive rookie of the year. Rams pass rusher Jared Verse won NFL defensive rookie of the year. I am very unhappy with myself because that was my pick and I didn't put any money on it. And there was pretty good money line on that before the season started. Eagles running back Saquon Barkley won NFL offensive player of the year. Broncos cornerback Patrick Surtain won NFL defensive player of the year. Crazy because not too long ago, the Broncos were considering getting rid of him and he just won NFL defensive player of the year. So good on the Broncos for holding on to him. And the last two guys here, Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow has won NFL comeback player of the year. And Jaguars defensive lineman Eric Armstead has been named the Walter Payton Man of the Year. So we will see the gold man on his chest for the rest of his career. All right, let's hop into some way too early predictions here. First and foremost, we've got Super Bowl winner. So we've got the Philadelphia Eagles. They are currently sitting at the favorite at plus 600. Kansas City Chiefs sitting at plus 650. Baltimore Ravens are also sitting at plus 650. Bills are sitting at plus 750. Jake's Lions are sitting at plus 1,000. And the San Francisco 49ers, who had a rough year full of injuries, sounds like there's going to be a little bit different of a look to the Niners next year. They've got a decent draft pick. They are sitting at plus 1,500 for Super Bowl winner. Jake, what's your favorite here? And it doesn't have to be the one on the list. These are just top six.
Yeah. I mean, obviously Philly, you would have to think at the beginning is going to be a clear-cut favorite. They're returning. I mean, I think they're returning almost everyone, to be honest. Like they're not going to lose much at all. Chiefs are still the Chiefs. And like I said, until they get proven that they're going to be beaten in the AFC, you have to put them up there. Ravens again, should be bringing back. I mean, it should be pretty much the same team again also. I don't think they're going to be losing too much. The defense is incredible. Lamar. Henry another year. Henry, you do have to wonder when he's going to start wearing down. Getting later in the career at this point. Buffalo, I'm still not sure, honestly, how they did that this year. I've never been that big on Buffalo, but obviously they win. The Lions, I can only say I hope we're healthy. It can't be worse than it was this year. And improve the pass rush a little bit, hopefully. Maybe get one more receiver. 49ers, like you said, are going to be very different. Debo's requesting a trade. Not even sure, honestly, who. There's talk that Purdy might not be the quarterback. So it depends what kind of contract they want to give him. Things are all over the place in San Francisco. That's kind of the big question mark. And can McCaffrey recover from the injury? So San Francisco is obviously the big question mark. At this point right now, if I was putting money down, I would go for the repeat of Philly.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. When you look at these teams, you've got Travis Kelce that sounds like he's considering retirement. Baltimore Ravens haven't proven that they can get over the hump in the AFC. If the Chiefs take a step back finally, does that mean that paves the way for them to be able to get to the Super Bowl? Possibly. They've got a lot of solid pieces in Baltimore. Lamar Jackson is young. It's surprising how young he is. I feel like he's been in the league for a long time, but he's got a lot of years left in him. So I'd be interested to watch how they compete over the course of the year. Buffalo, again, you and I both weren't high on them to start the season. They surprised us a little bit. I think they're going to need to pick up some pieces if they're going to be able to take the leap over the Chiefs. Detroit, I'm going to be interested to see how this new coaching staff impacts what the offense looks like. And then the Niners, you already talked a lot about how the Niners might look completely different. To me, I'm with you. The Eagles seems like the safe bet, and at plus 600, it's not a bad bet to put down to start the season, because that team is going to look basically the same. Vic Fangio is still going to be there as the DC. And I
mean, obviously, like you said earlier, the question is, what does the offense look like without Kellen? That's a big question mark. But
yep, exactly. But they were in the Super Bowl before him, right? So
right.
You should be able to get him replaced. We'll see who ends up in that position. All right. Next up here, we have regular season MVP. We just talked about who we thought was going to win. He is now the lead. Lamar Jackson sitting at plus 450. Josh Allen just behind him at plus 500. We've got Joe Burrow sitting at plus 600. Pat Mahomes at plus 800. Rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels moving into his second year at plus 950. And then there's a significant leap here from Jaden Daniels sitting at plus 950. It goes up to plus 2,000 with Jalen Hurts. These are the current odds on FanDuel. Jake, where are you laying your money down?
Oh, geez. I mean, at this point, I have no idea. I mean, I might even take a long shot at Jalen Hurts, to be honest. I don't know. It's so early at this point for an MVP pick that it's difficult to say, but
it's too early for all this shit. But
well, I mean, I don't think anyone's really betting MVP right now, but the Super Bowl I can see. But yeah, you obviously Lamar and Josh are going to have a legit chance. Burrow, if the team stays healthy, I think he has a legit chance. I obviously was very big on Cincinnati going into this season, thinking they were going to have a huge year, but then everything happened that happened. Mahomes at plus 800. I mean, even maybe it's a resurgence for him. Maybe the loss in the Super Bowl is going to spark a fire in him. I mean, we know the Chiefs never really play. Seems like they always just kind of skip through the regular season, just waiting for the playoffs to happen. But maybe that's the spark they needed. I mean, I said that and they were 16-1. So I mean, it's crazy to think that, but they barely win games. Every game is close. I don't know. I would probably. Safe bet I was probably Lamar, but are they really going to give him a third? So who knows?
Yeah, I mean, after this year and the performance that he had, like, he's going to have to apparently perform like well above and beyond these guys. I like Joe Burrow sitting at plus 600. Since the Bengals have some stuff they have to address, especially on the defensive side of the ball, they're going to have to bring back T. Higgins. I read today that Burrow has said that T. Higgins does want to return. They all want to stay together. Now, whether or not that's Burrow just trying to push the envelope a little bit, I don't know, but the Bengals have definitely some things to address on the defensive side of the ball. But if Joe Burrow stays healthy, man, he's a gunslinger. I actually like Jaden Daniels at plus 950. I like what Washington's done with this team. I think they are going to bring back a good amount of pieces. They need to round out their defense, but Dan Quinn is a hell of a defensive-minded coach. I think he just needs to get his system in place for another year. And that might be scary, because if they can get Dan Quinn's defense rolling like he had in Dallas and in Seattle, there's a real possibility that the Commanders are going to give the Eagles a run for their money in the NFC East, because that offense looked really good in a lot of different games this year.
Yeah, and with that division, I mean, they've still never had a back-to-back winner. So
yep, yeah, no back-to-back winner, and the Cowboys aren't. It's not going to be Dallas. It's not going to be the Giants. So
let's say Washington. I mean, it seems like it's inevitable that it's there for them. So yep. I mean, if that were to happen, then yeah, I would say that it's a realistic possibility.
Yeah. So plus 950, those aren't bad odds. Last one we're going to take a look at here is the NFL number 1 overall pick. Right now, Cam Ward is sitting at minus 120. Just as a reminder, Tennessee Titans do currently own the number 1 pick. There has been some rumors swirling here recently that they are open to trading down for the right offer. So we'll see if they stay in that position. But as of right now, this would be the Tennessee Titans picking. Right now, their quarterback is Will Levis. We saw what happened with that this year. But Cam Ward sitting at minus 120. Abdul Carter, stud from Penn State, sitting at plus 200. Jake's favorite player, Travis Hunter, is sitting at plus 400. Jake's second favorite player, Shedeur Sanders, sitting at plus 600. My boy Jackson Dart from Ole Miss, big jump here from plus 600 to plus 4,000. There's actually some rumors of him going in the first round, which Jake, you may want to talk about here a little bit. And then rounding out here, we've got Mason Graham sitting at plus 5,000.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, usually once the combine happens and stuff like that, someone jumps up to that number 1, and it's usually pretty solidified. Cam Ward and Shedeur are not quarterbacks I'm a fan of. I still find it interesting that Travis is being talked about as a corner in the NFL. I think it's no. I will see. Some team will. I hope he goes to the Browns, and I hope they put him at corner because that'll be the most fitting thing ever for him. I do think he could be a great receiver, but I think it's a drastic mistake to put that guy at corner in the NFL. Abdul Carter is, to me, the safest pick. I really like Abdul Carter coming off the edge. Shedeur is Shedeur. We'll see what situation he goes to. Jackson Dart is not going number 1 overall, I can tell you that, and I don't think Mason Graham is either. So, I don't even know what the safe pick would be right now. I would say Abdul Carter might be the safest pick right now, to be honest.
I think he's the best. He's the best player on this board for sure. Yeah,
I think so too.
Best overall player on the board, and just a couple of years ago, we saw what happens when you draft a Penn State end. It's worked out pretty well for Dallas,
right?
Abdul Carter is my favorite. I don't know that he's going to go number 1 overall. If he does go number 1 overall, I don't think Tennessee's sitting in the number 1 position. So we'll have to see what happens with that. All right. We've got some more odds here. But before we do that, we're going to jump into some draft stuff here. So I'm not going to go through the process of reading out all of these. You guys can look up where it sits. This is now finally solidified. A top 10 picks right now. We do have Tennessee sitting at 1, Cleveland sitting at 2, New York Giants at 3, Patriots at 4, Jags at 5, Raiders at 6, Jets at 7, Panthers at 8, Saints at 9, and rounding out the top 10 are the Chicago Bears. Jake, you've got some info here on mock draft information. Let's talk through it.
Yeah, so I'm just going to go through a few of like the notable picks that I see. I'm using Field Yates and Daniel Jeremiah's mocks. They're 2 of the people I actually respect the most when it comes to mock drafting, other than Peter Schrager. But Schrager never releases his this early. He's always closer to the draft, and he's tied in the most to all the teams. So his is generally the best, but unfortunately it doesn't come out until way later. But for what we have right now, so Field Yates has Travis Hunter going number 1 to Tennessee, and Daniel Jeremiah has Abdul Carter going number 1 to Tennessee. You kind of just talked about that a little bit. Daniel Jeremiah's reasoning was that the team president of the Titans basically came out and said he would not pass on a generational talent with the first pick. He said, to me, Carter is the best player in the draft. He plays a premium position, and that they think that they'll add a quarterback in the free agency market to go against Will Levis. So Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter is who they have as the number 1 going there. Before we go to 2, what do you think about that?
I mean, we just talked about it. Abdul Carter to me is the answer. If they're smart, generational talent, I mean, there's quarterbacks that are available, so if they can grab something in free agency before the draft, then why would you not draft? I mean, he could be Javon Curse-esque, for Tennessee. It's been a long time since they've had an edge like that's that big of a difference maker. So if Tennessee can get aggressive, I mean, realistically, they might be able to drop down 2 spots and flip with the Giants, get a trade, still be able to pick at 3 and still get Abdul Carter.
The question with that to me, though, is what if the Browns trade Myles Garrett? Because then he might be the Myles Garrett replacement.
Yeah.
So that's where they might not get him there by doing that. So
yeah, that's fair.
So number 2, Daniel Jeremiah has the Browns taking Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter going to the Browns on Field Yates. Pretty much what we just talked about. If Myles Garrett's gone, Abdul Carter seems like the obvious pick. Yep. Quarterback situation then obviously would be free agency for them instead of Tennessee.
I'm still waiting on the hammer to drop with Deshaun because I feel like sooner than later Cleveland's going to say he screwed his Achilles up, not following protocol. Let's get out of this contract.
So they both have the first quarterback off the board next to the Giants. They both have Cam Ward being the first quarterback drafted. Number 4, New England. They both have offensive tackle Will Campbell from LSU. Let's try to find some notables. So Daniel Jeremiah at number 6 to the Raiders is where Shedeur goes. Yeah. Obviously, there's a lot of known stuff with Brady and Shedeur. Brady's been training Shedeur since he was in high school, so there are things that tie in there. I know I've seen a little bit of a connection of Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson getting back together there. I don't think that will happen, but I mean, obviously, chances are there still. The free agency is going to open a lot of things. Once free agency gets going, I think the draft is going to figure itself out quite a bit because there's so many quarterback questions right now that's where kind of all the questions are coming in the draft. And there's so few, there's no good quarterbacks, honestly, in the draft. So that's where things are going to get really interesting. Like that, like if I were to ask you right now, like what quarterback would you want to take number 1 in the draft? Like not even number 1 overall, like first round pick. Like I wouldn't take any of them.
No, not really. I mean, the problem is that some of these franchises just lose year after year after year. So taking a home run swing out of Shedeur Sanders or a Cam Ward with the possibility of him turning into something makes sense. But I mean, if I were in a position with an organization where I would need a quarterback, I would do my best to try to fill it through free agency this year. Next year's different, but.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's just so many questions because Cam's never been that great of a player. Like, I mean, he was at Washington State, he was exciting, but he just turns the ball over so much that I think in the NFL, that's going to be a huge issue. And then Shedeur basically just stands like a statue in the pocket. If he doesn't have the greatest O-line in the world, he's going to get destroyed in the NFL. I mean, he just got destroyed in college for 2 years. So yeah, I really question both of them. So we talked about Jackson Dart a little bit earlier. Jackson Dart might end up being kind of like the most successful this first season if any of them play. I mean, obviously, I think those guys will play, but
yeah, I mean, and for Shedeur's standpoint, like logistically, of these top 6 teams, who has the best offensive lineman? I think it's the Giants.
Yeah, well, and that would pair him with Neighbors too, which is probably the best weapon available too for these teams. Yeah, I mean, like put Shedeur or Cam, honestly, either one of them on the Browns. Like I don't see that. The
Browns, it's not going to work.
Well, right, yeah. But I mean, even Tennessee or the Browns, I'm like, what? They're not doing anything.
Yeah.
So another notable player that I just saw here, one of my favorite players in college football, wide receiver Tetairoa McMillan from Arizona. He's an absolute beast. If anyone didn't watch Arizona much, this guy's going to light up the NFL. He's going to come in and be a success from day one. Daniel Jeremiah has him going at 8 to the Panthers, and Field Yates has him going at 9 to the Saints. We talked a little bit earlier about the Saints' weapons being a question for Kellen Moore. That's a good weapon to have. I would love to get Tetairoa McMillan first round pick.
Him either playing opposite of Xavier Legette or playing opposite of Chris Olave, like that's a cheat code if you've got the right quarterback. That would make Carolina look potentially pretty fun to watch next year. There's some other things they need to do to get fixed before they're going to be competing, especially in the carousel that is the NFC South. But
right.
Yeah, I would be interested to see. The Saints are going to have to find a quarterback because I don't think Derek Carr is going to be able to get it done with those. But yeah, having like Olave opposite of McMillan, that's tough, man. You're going to have 2 really solid cornerbacks on your team and a top high safety that's going to be able to play the ball. I mean, especially if it's the Saints, because Kellen Moore's going to leverage both of those guys.
Yeah.
Kellen's going to be able to weaponize those two guys quickly.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize how big Tetro McMillan is because he's very athletic, but he's 6'5". Like he's
a big dude,
and he can run like hell. Like he's a weapon. Like I'm honestly surprised they haven't fallen all the way to 8, but I guess just by default because of team needs. But
yeah,
if I was a team that was close, just only a few pieces away, I would be trying to trade up to that pick. I'd give up a lot for him. I'm trying to find just some other notable picks here. The Bears. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you better not skip over 12. I need to hear what they've got.
Oh, no, I wasn't. The Bears and the 49ers were both offensive linemen. Your Dallas Cowboys at 12, we have conflicting picks. Field Yates has cornerback Will Johnson, which very successful at Michigan. I know that's probably not what you want.
I just don't know that. I don't know why it would make sense. Why would we go after? I mean, we have Deron Bland and Trevon Diggs. Like our cornerback.
So it says the reason that they used was Diggs is recovering from a knee injury that required surgery. Deron Bland only has 1 year left on his rookie contract, and Jordan Lewis will be a free agent. So that was the reason that they used 6'2", ball skills are elite. Eberflus plays zone heavy, so that was just the reasoning behind it.
All right. I mean, Will Johnson's a stud. I would not hate that pick.
Right. And I think you'll be more happier with the Daniel Jeremiah pick, number 12, Ashton Genty, running back from Boise State. Might be the too obvious pick of the draft, I think.
I think so. I'm honestly a little concerned that somebody's going to try to hop up after seeing Detroit spent a pick to get Jahmyr Gibbs, and you saw what, I think there's, Saquon took the Eagles to the Super Bowl. Like the running backs, and I love this because I love the run game. Running backs are finally getting a little bit more respect than they have the past few years. So a little concerning that Genty's not going to be there at 12. But if we do pick him, like even if it's not necessarily best fit or best player available, like I still want to see it just because it's going to make him a little bit more appetizing to watch. Because we're not winning 12 games next year. If you hear Dak's like, we're close to a championship.
Yeah. Jerry's been giving him that glory hole too much, I think. But
I guess so. It's not all sunshine's glory holes.
Yeah, it is in Dallas.
It isn't in Dallas. Yeah.
So our Colts fans that listen to the show, obviously that's what most of them are, unfortunately. Number 14, the Colts. We have a tight end, Tyler Warren, which was Field Yates, and we have Jahdae Barron, corner from Texas, which I love Jahdae Barron. If I was a Colts fan, I'd be pumped with either one of those picks. Obviously, Tyler Warren is a huge weapon on offense that can play everywhere, split out. He can play inside. Jahdae Barron, though, he single-handedly shut down the Ohio State offense. So he's nothing to slouch at. I love Jahdae Barron. I even talked about him quite a bit when that game in the preview for Ohio State, Texas, how I thought he would shut down Jeremiah Smith, and he did. He's a weapon. And the Colts. Right.
I know
might say are a little far away.
Carter wants Tyler Warren.
Yes. Well, Carter was also very big wanting Brock Bowers. Obviously a Notre Dame guy, but or not Brock Bowers. Who's the Notre Dame one that went to the Raiders also? Jesus,
Michael Mayer.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens with I'm sure we'll get a lot of wonderful Colts intake on draft night from a lot of drunken people telling us how worthless their pick is and how much they hate. What the hell's what's the guy, the redneck guy?
Chris Ballard.
Chris Ballard, yeah. Wondering how great he's picking.
Listen, you guys don't listen. You guys don't listen to Jake. We don't give a shit who you root for. Just listen to the show. If it's all Colts fans, it's fine.
Yeah.
Just comment and ask Jake stupid questions.
Oh yes, please. Looking here just for a few other. So on the Field Yates mock draft, the one that had Will Johnson going to Dallas, he actually has Ashton Genty going at number 20 to Denver. That would be interesting. That'd be a great fit, actually.
Yeah. Is Javonte still going to be there, or is he gone now?
Javonte Williams is a free agent.
Okay.
So right after that is where things get a little interesting. We kind of teased this earlier. At number 21 in the Field Yates draft, the Pittsburgh Steelers draft Jackson Dart from Ole Miss. Reese, I know you love Jackson Dart. So what are your thoughts here as Russell Wilson, Justin Fields are probably going to be gone, and Dart did get to spend quite a bit of time with Mike Tomlin at the Senior Bowl?
Yeah, I mean, if he's finding the connection there, then good for him. I'm a big fan of Jackson Dart. I don't think he's a year one starter. That's a little concerning to me. I feel like they need to bring somebody in that he can sit behind for a year or two. But yeah, I mean, I don't hate the pick. I think the Steelers have if I were the Steelers, I would be again attacking QB in free agency and then trying to solidify something here with a receiver or another weapon on the offensive side of the ball.
And that is where Daniel Jeremiah went. Daniel Jeremiah went wide receiver Matthew Golden from Texas, saying that he don't think you can really go wrong drafting either him or Ohio State's Emeka Egbuka here.
Yep.
So kind of that philosophy of getting the quarterback through free agency, which we rumored earlier, could be Stafford, could be Rodgers, could be Darnold. Russell Wilson might even be back. So there's so many quarterback questions that I think are going to be answered before the draft. I think they're going to have to be answered before the draft, really, because as I've mentioned, I'm not a fan of any of these quarterbacks in the draft. There's one here that has definitely just caught my eye, and it is a matching pick by both Field Yates and Daniel Jeremiah. Number 25 to the Houston Texans. We both absolutely love this guy, Luther Burden III. Pairing him with C.J. Stroud, and well, it's going to be a new offense now because somehow Bobby Sloat got fired. But
yeah,
Burden with Stephon Diggs. Oh, I guess Diggs is going to be a free agent, so I guess
everything I'm reading though is that Diggs is planning on coming back to Houston. So you would have Diggs, Burden, Tank Dell, Nico Collins.
Ridiculous. Like that's ridiculous. Sign me up. I'll replace Bobby Slowick. Good God.
I know. I was going to be like blind Kellen Moore could play those call those plays.
Yeah. Luther Burden, not quite the weapon Tetero McMillan is, but he's pretty fucking good. I love him. He's a stud.
Yes.
When you go up against SEC corners every week at Missouri and you light up all of them, you're pretty damn good. I'm looking to see if we got any more that catch my eye. Oh, well, here's one. Number 27, the Baltimore Ravens, my guy, Oz Thomas, the best man-to-man corner in college football this year. I'm honestly surprised all the way to 27. The Lions are drafting right behind him at 28. And God, if Oz were to ever be a Lion, I would be so pumped, but that never seems to happen for me. Let me see if the other one has Oz going first round at all. No. So Oz is not going first round in this other mock, which is kind of surprising. Lions draft pick Daniel Jeremiah has Mike Green, the edge from Marshall, to pair with Aiden Hutchinson. Mike Green was a huge story out of the Senior Bowl. He absolutely dominated Senior Bowl week. He was kind of the talk of Senior Bowl at edge. The other one, number 28 to Lions from Field Yates, has Gray Zabel. What a fucking name, from North Dakota State. They anticipate him to be one of the replacements, as we will lose a guard this year. But he does also say that JTT from Ohio State could be a fit here. And if JTT is available, he is actually who I want, even over sorry, that popped up. Even over Green from Marshall. If JTT is available, or even Jack Sawyer, like I've seen what those guys can do. Those guys are weapons. Please get pass rush. That's the only damn thing I care about. I know I said I wanted Oz, but we've got to have some pass rush too.
Yeah.
Before I continue on, Taylor says it feels lazy that everyone keeps having Chargers pick Loveland at 22. I did skip over the Chargers pick. Colston Loveland was the one in that one and in that one also. So obviously they think that they're going to repair Harbaugh with Loveland at tight end for Herbert. Yeah, I mean, we can see it, but I don't know. A tight end at 22 seems kind of interesting, especially if it's not Tyler Warren.
Yeah, I was going to say,
obviously he'll be
Tyler
going way
Warren
ahead of time. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not really seeing anything else that's too notable. Just because they were just in the Super Bowl, we'll give the Chiefs and Eagles pick real quick. Chiefs have Donovan Jackson from Ohio State, offensive lineman. And on the other one, they have James Pierce, the edge from Tennessee, which he was a stud too.
Yes.
James Pierce had a hell of a year.
Yep.
In Philly, we've got TJ Sanders, defensive lineman from South Carolina, just what they need, another D tackle to beef up that D line. And Jihad Campbell, linebacker from Alabama, is the other one. So more boosting of that ridiculous defense for Philly from great players, it seems like. So that is just some first round early indications of the mock. For those of you listening right now, please join us. First round of the draft, we did it this year for the 2024 draft. We'll do it for the 2025 draft also. We will be live the entire first round, bringing on people that are fans of teams, bringing on friends that join the show throughout the season. It's a long night, usually about 4 hours. Consistent stream, though, just going through the picks, talking college football, talking NFL football. It's a fun night. So for the people that are listening now, don't forget on draft night, if you want something else to listen to other than the same boring people, join us that night.
Yeah, and if you guys want to call in, like more than welcome to.
Yes.
We got 32 teams to cover. So if you're a big fan of one of these teams that try to avoid Indianapolis Colts fans because we're already going to have like 16 of them on the show. But
yeah,
I think we got the Cowboys and the Colts covered. We got the Lions covered. But other
Chiefs.
than that,
We got the Chiefs covered.
We got the Chiefs covered. Other than that, if you're a fan of one of these teams, you guys want to call in and talk through your pick as it's happening, please let us know. You guys can DM us on X or Instagram or whatever. Just
yeah,
we'll get in touch with you.
For Taylor that posted there, I don't know if that means he is a Chargers fan or not, but we definitely would take a Chargers fan. We did actually have one on.
We had one last year,
from this last year. So yeah, from San Diego. So yeah, it's always a cool night. It's a lot of fun. It's a long night, but we have fun with it. So. All right, next, we're going to get national championship odds. Ohio State is coming into the season as the favorite at plus 600. Texas right behind them at plus 650, which, ironically, that is the first game of the college football season this year. They are playing each other. Oregon's plus 650, Georgia 700, Penn State 800, Notre Dame 1,200. Heisman, LSU quarterback Garrett Nussmeier plus 800, Arch Manning at Texas 900, Cade Klubnik, Clemson plus 1,000, Dante Moore filling in for Dylan Gabriel at Oregon plus 1,200. Jeremiah Smith, the stud receiver, returning to Ohio State, plus 1,200. Nico Iamaleava, plus 1,400, in what should be a very good Tennessee offense again. Very early for both of these, Reese, just kind of an outlook, some early thoughts. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the Ohio State here makes sense. They're going to have some turnover. They're also bringing back some key guys. This team obviously knows how to buy a championship. They just did it this year, so there's not anything that's going to stop them from doing it again. I mean, there was a lot of talent there, but they had to shell out a lot of money in order to do it. I like Oregon sitting at plus 650, and honestly, I'm a little surprised that Penn State is sitting where they are at plus 800. This team is bringing back everyone and had a really solid team this year. You know, we talked every season we've done this, we've talked about how Penn State's unpredictable, and at some point in the season, they're going to shit the bed. And this year, they were competitive in every single game, even the ones that they lost. Completely blew out SMU in that game. So I'm a little surprised they're sitting at plus 800.
We'll see you then, Taylor.
We'll see you then, buddy. Appreciate you listening. Yeah, I'm surprised that Penn State sits at plus 800. Right now, this is the one that I'm kind of most interested in, and Oregon at plus 650.
Yeah, so Penn State, I think it was 2 weeks ago, we went through their schedule a little bit. I have some big questions on their schedule. I love their roster, though. A lot, actually. Bringing over Knowles from Ohio State and getting rid of the buffoon from IU, Allen, I think is a huge improvement. Of course, Allen ends up at Clemson, where him and Dabo can experience the Jerry Jones glory hole all night long. I hate those people so much. But yeah, Penn State is loaded. I do question their schedule, though. That's my biggest question going into the season, to be honest. Before I continue, we do have a Titans fan here that just said they are going to get Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, we do know that he bought land in Nashville a few years ago. There was a lot of talk of him moving to Nashville. I think that is a legit possibility. Also, there's not a lot of talk of it yet, but that is one of the places that I do think is a legit chance. Going back to college, Ohio State losing both coordinators, I think, is a huge deal, especially with Ryan Day having the issues he's had and losing the experience of the quarterback, Will Howard. Speaking of that, I'm actually glad I just brought his name up. I think Will Howard should have been a first-round draft pick, to be honest. I think he is more legitimate than either of the three guys we mentioned. Shador, Cam, and Jackson Dart, I would take Will Howard over all three of those just for an early talk of that. But big questions with Ohio State. Julian Saying obviously I think is going to be the quarterback. That seems like the logical thing. Pairing him with Jeremiah Smith, still obviously have tons of weapons there. They do lose a little bit on the defense, actually quite a bit on the defense. So there will be questions there for them to be an early favorite. I think Texas. I wish I had an early line. I know that the line is out for that game. I think Texas should be favored in that game, to be honest, and I think it is at Ohio State. So Texas at plus 650, I think, is a great benefit. Their schedule, all of these schedules with the expanded playoff, I think there's legitimate chances all of these teams should be in the playoff. I think the biggest question, honestly, by looking at this is Oregon, just because Dante Moore, though he was kind of a phenom, he still really hasn't proven anything yet. Dylan Gabriel and Bo Nix both came in and really flourished in Oregon. I'm wondering, though, if Dante Moore has that same ability. That's a big question mark to me. I do like the other ones, though. Ohio State, Texas, Georgia, Penn State, Notre Dame even. Notre Dame's going to be another one with the question mark of a brand new quarterback. But it's early. We'll see. Heisman favorites, kind of like picking an MVP favorite right now. I find it nearly impossible. Nussmeier being the favorite's interesting to me, but
yeah, I thought so too. I thought Nussmeier being the favorite is interesting. Even Arch Manning, I think, is a little surprising that he's that high up. Same thing with Klubnik. I think they're using big names just to try to bring in money. Yeah, that's kind of what it feels like.
It's Vegas stealing money essentially, but yeah.
I'd love to see Jeremiah Smith is an absolute beast. So
it's
challenging to get a receiver.
If Genty didn't win it, though, I think Devontae won it. Devontae Smith though, so I guess there's possibility. But all right, so next slide, some preseason, or I guess way before preseason, some conference championship odds. ACC, Clemson's the favorite. Big 12, Arizona State and Arizona State are both tied at 550 is the favorite. We just mentioned Ohio State, they're plus 170 is the favorite, which very interesting. Penn State's plus 380 there. They're not even the second favorite. But again, I think that goes a little bit into the schedule thing I was just talking about. And then SEC champs, Texas at plus 210. Reese, before we go over a few of these schedules, what are your thoughts on some of these early rankings or odds?
Yeah, I am a little bit surprised that SMU is sitting. I kind of thought SMU was going to be a little bit higher up. I thought they were going to be higher up to compete more with Miami. I mean, it's 310 to 440, so it's not that much of a difference, but I liked what SMU looked like, and I think they're becoming very quickly a pretty attractive team to go to. Big 12, I was high on Kansas State this year, and we saw where that got me. I like the Arizona State pick here. Coach Dilly.
They're loaded.
Yeah, absolutely loaded. Coach Dilly's back. A lot to like about Arizona State. I hope they make some real noise next year. We talked already about the national championship side of the equation. If I'm looking at these 6 teams here, Penn State's the bet that I think I like the most. Again, we talked about the schedule a little bit. I also like Oregon. It's just the funny thing about this is all of these teams are we're talking about favors for winning the national championship, and the conference championship. Realistically, if you're any of these teams, do you really want to win the conference championship?
That's kind of the problem.
Yeah. So they're gonna have to fix that. SEC, Texas makes the most sense to me. I think that makes all the sense in the world. I do like Tennessee. I like Tennessee this year. They're bringing a lot back in terms of their offense. So that's maybe one of the sleeper picks here to be able to sneak in. But again, NCAA's got to find a way to put value back into these conference title.
Yeah, and Bama at plus 700, I'm giving a little love to, just because the dynamic duo is back together of Kalen DeBoer and Brian Grubb. So that's going to be pretty nasty too. So just to talk to a few of these schedules, Clemson at plus 270 is the ACC favorite. They are kicking off the season LSU in Clemson. Then they play Troy, at Georgia Tech, Syracuse, at North Carolina, at Boston College, home against SMU, Duke, Florida State, at Louisville, Furman in our going to the SEC scheduling. And then at South Carolina to end the season. So just some quick notes here. I really wish that Clemson, North Carolina was at Clemson, because I would love to see Bill Belichick watch that dumbass run down the hill and just have him mic'd up to hear the comments. God, I can only imagine what would be being said.
Yeah, the mumbling would be great.
Florida State, and then the next week, a short week even. Oh, God. Friday night on the road at Louisville right after playing Florida State. Those road games on Friday nights in the conference are never good. And then they are at South Carolina, which they don't ever beat, at least recently.
South Carolina didn't look too bad this year. So,
yeah, that's going to be non-conference anyway. So I guess if we look at conference, at Georgia, Syracuse, at North Carolina, at BC, SMU, Duke, Florida State, at Louisville. That's the conference slate. I really don't think they would lose more than 2 of those. I would think with 2 losses, that should get them in the conference championship game still. Just because I'm a little bit of a homer, we're going to go over Florida State. Just they're plus 1,600, which...
Did you just say you're a little bit of a homer?
Well, yeah, but that's disrespectful that Florida State's plus 1,600. I think that's crazy.
I don't necessarily disagree, but you calling yourself a little bit of a homer is crazy.
Well, yeah, probably. So we're just going to go over conference games here. At Virginia, Miami, Pitt, at Stanford, Wake, at Clemson, Vatech, at NC State. NC State is a Friday night on a short week.
That's a tough one.
That's not too bad of a schedule.
No, it's not. It's not.
We got the son of Napoleon Dynamite and Mr. Ed, Carson Beck, coming to our stadium on Saturday, October 4th. I think we'll be all right in that one. I really think we're okay in that one.
It's the best description of Carson Beck I think I've ever heard. That was wonderful.
At Stanford, I don't fear that. I'm looking at the road games. At Clemson, obviously, is going to be tough. Vatech will be home. At NC State is usually a tough place for us to play, especially on a Friday night on a short week. What in the hell is this comment? The face painters versus the diaper burners. Who wins? That's a good one. So,
Dynamite drop in.
I honestly don't mind Florida State's conference schedule. I think we could get out of that with 2 losses. So that,
yeah, I've lost a little bit of confidence, but you guys have brought in new coaching, so I'm thinking
it's a whole new coaching staff. Again, more use in the portal and recruiting. So
DJ is not going to be under center.
Oh God, thankfully. Even though I'm not sure I blame him at this point after what I witnessed the rest of the season. Let's check out Arizona State real quick, just because we obviously are fans of Dilly, and I think that they are probably going to, they're co-favorite to win, but Arizona State's schedule is looking like they're going to kick it off with the Northern Arizona Lumberjacks, at Mississippi State, Texas State, at Baylor, TCU, at Utah, Texas Tech, Houston, at Iowa State, West Virginia, at Colorado, home against Arizona. So road games at Baylor, at Utah, at Iowa State, at Colorado. A few of those are actually some really tough road games.
And at Mississippi State.
Yeah, I was just going conference, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
And that is going to be that'll be an interesting, actually, it's the second game of the season for them after they play the Northern Arizona Lumberjacks. So Mississippi State's kind of a hit-miss team right now. They weren't the best last year, but I do know they brought in some pieces.
I feel like Northern Arizona Lumberjacks was a question on one of the quiz shows last year.
It probably was.
I'm looking this team up right now.
So Utah to me is a big one, just because we obviously talk about how tough of a place that is to play. This year, it obviously wasn't that tough. A lot of questions going on there. Cam Rising is back for his 34th year of college football, so we'll see if he plays. And then at Iowa State is not a very pleasant place to play either. I'm not really that worried about the Colorado game being on the road, but
no, and I'm not overly worried. Utah kind of lost their luster this year. I don't know that they're as scary going into Utah as what they were before.
Did you find anything on the Lumberjacks?
I mean, I'm looking at their uniforms. It's about all I've seen. They've got an NAU logo that's kind of in the shape of an axe. So they got some cool jerseys.
All right, so let's talk through real quick the Ohio State schedule. Kicking off at home against Texas, and they play Grambling State, and they play Ohio. First 3 games are all at home. They do leave on Saturday, September 27th, on the road at Washington, Minnesota, at Illinois, at Wisconsin, back-to-back. Then they've got a bye week. Then Penn State comes to town on Saturday, November 1st. Then they go to Purdue, home against UCLA, home against Rutgers, and then they close the year at Michigan. Thoughts on that?
It's Ohio State, so it's kind of hard to see where these guys are actually. I mean, starting the season at Texas, against Texas is challenging. I think they got a decent draw being able to play them at Columbus, but we saw them not play that well against some decent teams in Columbus this year.
Mm-hmm.
So that could start the season off with an L. And then, of course, all the Ohio State fans are going to be screaming for Ryan Day to get fired. Grambling, Ohio, Washington, they weren't great last year, but
yeah, it's a sneaky game.
It's in Washington, so that'll be a game to look after. Back home, they're traveling to Illinois. Sometimes that can be a tough place to. I mean, they're at Camp Randall. I think that could be a challenging game for them. They get Penn State in Ohio. I think James Franklin and that team would love nothing more than to walk into Columbus and just beat the brakes off the Buckeyes to get a little revenge from last year. And then they're back in Michigan, who they cannot seem to beat. So yeah, I mean, they're logistically Ohio State. Shit. I mean, it almost looks like what's going to happen just like this year. They're going to have a 2-loss season. They're not going to play in the conference title game. They're going to get into the playoff and then they're going to rip.
See, that's kind of what I was thinking too. I was like, what could the law? So say they lose to Texas, they lose to Penn State, and they lose to Michigan. Those fans are going to be so pissed. Like, they're still going to make the playoff at 9-3, but I can just only imagine the uproar there. One last thing I want to close it out with is the Texas schedule. They're the favorite in the SEC. We just talked about they do kick off the season at Ohio State. They are going to return home for 3 straight after that: San Jose State, UTEP, and Sam Houston. Sam Houston's not a terrible team. Bye week, then they're going to the Swamp to play Florida. Then the Cotton Bowl for the Red River Shootout against Oklahoma. Then they're going to Kentucky, to Mississippi State. So let's talk about this. The month of October, they are not in Austin at all. They're going to the Swamp, Cotton Bowl, Lexington, Starkville. They are on the road the whole month of October. That's not a very favorable SEC schedule. And then November 1st, they play Vandy at home. Diego Pissing Pavia. He's back. I don't know how, but he's back.
Well, if Cam Rising's allowed to come back, then the Pistons should be able to come back.
I cannot wait for him to be back. Bye week. Then they're going on the road again to Georgia. Then they get to play Arizona or Arkansas at home, and then Texas A&M rivalry to end the season. So this Texas schedule is kind of no joke. I mean, I know those teams aren't the best that they're going on the road against, but Florida's going to be better. Oklahoma that's still the Red River Shootout. I mean, that game's always a good game. And say what you want, at Kentucky, I believe Kentucky, did they beat Georgia last year at home? I think they did, if I remember right. Mississippi State, that's the one that's probably a little easier for a road game, but that will also be their 4th consecutive road game. So no walk in the park by any means. And then to have to go to Georgia and then still play Texas A&M to end the year. I mean, and let's not forget, they're kicking it off at Ohio State. So, I mean, they are going to be battled on the road for sure for Arch Manning in the debut season at Texas.
Yes, September is going to be an easy month for him, but then it's going to get tough.
Yeah.
That first game at Ohio State, that's going to be obviously a crazy one. I wouldn't shake my head at that October 4th game when they're in Gainesville. Right. DJ Lagway was a major difference maker for that team, and now he's going to have a full year under his belt. Oklahoma is a team that's drastically underperformed this year, but they're young. To your point, like, and that's a Cotton Bowl, so it's technically a neutral site. At Kentucky, we talked about that. Kentucky beat Georgia, so you got the pisser. This is a tough schedule, man.
It's really tough.
It's not 2024 Florida Gators tough, but it's not. It's not an easy schedule.
Yeah, and that schedule's, and they lose quite a bit too. Like they're not a team that's returning a ton. So
yeah,
I'm really interested in what happens with that. Do we have any more slides, or is that it?
I think that's it.
All right. I mean, that's the preview of what we can give so far at this point. Obviously, when NFL free agency happens, we're going to have a lot more. When college football spring ball and the spring portal opens, we'll have a little bit more. It's kind of just up in the air at this point. It's a waiting game for those two, for the portal and spring ball and for free agency. And then we'll have the NFL draft after that. So this is kind of the dead zone for a little bit. Obviously, combines in a few weeks for people that care about that. But until then, I guess that's what it is.
Yeah, it's been another good season. I think we've taken a little bit of a step forward, been able to go live this year, which I don't think we really tested out too much last year. I think we figured out our systems in place to make sure that we can come to you guys without any technical issues. Last year we had a lot of technical problems. We kind of put that in the past. Grown the subscriber list a little bit. Hopefully we can continue to do that. But yeah, it's been awesome. I mean, today from a comment standpoint was our most engaging one of the season, I feel like, from folks that we don't typically talk to. So that's awesome stuff, man.
I think other than maybe draft night, that was probably the only other night we had more.
And I never in a million years thought today we'd be going an hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, I know.
I thought for sure this is going to be a 30-minute show at most. So
right.
Yeah, it's been an awesome season, man. We definitely, I think we did a little better on the picks last year than this year, but there's a lot of volatility both in college with all of the transfer portal stuff going on, and NFL was obviously a crazy season. So yeah,
and I think we were still above 500 in both though. So
yeah, in which, I mean, we're picking these games Tuesdays,
right.
So it's
and
not
all of them.
In all of them. Yeah, it's not an easy thing to do. Every time I have a conversation with somebody and I'm like, yeah, we do in NCAA and NFL. And they're like, how many games is that a week? I'm like, it's like a million. It feels like a million.
I mean, college is usually around like the 30 to 33. And then what, NFL, you got what?
16,
something like that.
14 to 16.
16. Yeah. So, I mean, we're right around 50 every week. So
yeah, it's not bad. Well, yeah, just final thoughts for me. Everybody that has taken the time to either join us live or listen to us or subscribe to the podcast on Spotify or Apple or wherever you guys are finding us, we really, really appreciate it. We hope to see you guys back next season, and we'll be back to you guys. We might drop a random episode in for the free agency, depending on how all that stuff shakes out. But at the very latest, we'll be back to you guys in the draft. If we do decide to do the free agency stuff, we'll try to maybe give a heads up on our socials a couple days in advance just to let everybody know. But if you want to make sure you don't miss anything, just make sure you click subscribe and you should get a notification when we drop our next episode. So
yep, that's all we really ask. Just like, share, and subscribe. Tell everyone you know. Send the word around. Obviously it is primarily, well, it's more gambling. It's a lot of news and notes and gambling. Some friends join the show throughout the season if you guys missed those. But yeah, just hang around for draft night. It'll be a long night and we need all the comments we can. Taylor, we'll see you draft night for your Chargers input if that is who you're a fan of. It kind of seemed that way.
Yep.
But that's it. So for Reese Downing, I'm Jacob Workman. We will see you guys potentially with free agent. If not, definitely draft night. See you, everyone.
See you guys. Cheers.